Point
Now
conversions.
in Studio B is Uncle B, Blaine Fowler, national champion at BYU, dual threat analyst, and a guy who will be watching basketball this week while football takes a break. But let's focus on what we've been discussing for the last 18 minutes or so, Blaine, and that is BYU football. 4 wins, 4 losses, 4 to go in the regular season. How have your expectations been altered since the beginning of the season?
They're the same. If we go back and look at the sports nations we were doing back in August, they're right about where we thought they would be, but it's against different teams than like we were talking. I thought that Michigan State was going to be a brutal test and that they'd have a struggle there. And I actually was worried that if Michigan State was as good as they've been, it would be another Michigan where they get run out of the stadium. And that didn't happen. I figured the Boise State was one of the toughest ones on the schedule, and it proved to be. They actually were maybe closer than I thought they would be, because of the fact that they forced so many turnovers. And so that one, we expected. I thought they would lose to UCLA. I thought they'd beat Utah. I said at the beginning of the year, bowl eligibility is what we're looking for. They got to get to 6 wins, which I think is where they're very comfortably going to do that. I thought that 7 was a good goal. If they could get to 7, and I'm talking regular season, I'm not including a bowl game. So if they were 7-5 in the regular season, I thought, okay, good. Brand new offense, brand new defense. I would be okay with that. 8, I said, wow, this is a really good season. And then we said if they get 9 in the regular season, and then I would expect if they get 9 in the regular season, they're going to go win their bowl game and get 10. That 10, with a brand new offense, brand new defense, we'd have to start talking about this team against this schedule as one of the best teams that's ever played at BYU, and talking about them comparing to the 96 team and the 84 team and some of these great teams, the team that was so good back in 1980. So that was my expectation before the season. So now they're 4-4, and I fully expect that they can win the next 4 games. They've had a chance to rest up a little bit. They will this week and get a little more healthy. Now, keep in mind, we were talking about these things before I knew that Wilcox wasn't going to play, that Kyle Johnson wasn't going to play, that Louis Lapawahu was going to be hurt, that Jamal Williams was going to miss 2.5 games, 2 3/4 games, or being effective in 3 games. So with all that, I think they're right on schedule. Do I wish that they could have beaten one of the, Utah or Boise where they were right there, or that they could have gotten a touchdown pass against West Virginia? Yeah, but I think realistically, with all the change that's taken place in the offseason and with 3 guys they were planning on starting on the offensive line not being available, I think they're in a great position. And hey, did you guys watch West Virginia last week? That is a very legit football team.
Absolutely, and they have Oklahoma and Baylor in Morgantown.
They're really, really good. And
West Virginia.
And you want to know what? Boise State is a legit football team. The fact that BYU forced as many turnovers as they did was fantastic. That's a really good football team. And so to come away with close losses to those 2 teams, and Utah is a very good football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That's the one that I look back at and go, oh. Because with Boise State, I think you get a little bit, you force turnovers and you do things, but you get a little bit lucky because I think Boise State is really good. Utah is a game where I think BYU matched up really well. They forced turnovers. When they're plus that many in the turnover margin department against Utah, that's a game that you got to come away with. So that's the most disappointing one. To me, that's the swing game. But if you look at the FPI, the Football Power Index, which is football's answer to the RPI, BYU's still getting national respect based on the schedule they've played. They're still ranked higher than Utah in the FPI.
Which is pretty wild, right?
Yeah. So
ESPN's. Yeah.
Right. Their Football Power Index. So there's still respect out there. I just spent last weekend at Stanford for the Stanford-Colorado game. And by the way,
saw a 10-5 game.
Yeah, that was awful. That was really, really bad. 2 really good defenses, and Stanford's an offense that's struggling. But Colorado came into that game 14th in the nation in total offense, 14th in the nation in total defense. They couldn't move the ball against Stanford. 2 things everybody was asking me about. Hey, BYU, wow, they're good. So you're saying they're going, wow, they're really good this year. I mean, I recognize that they're 4-4, but the schedule they played, holy cow, they're pretty solid.
So
people are saying that, and then everyone goes, hey, what was with that 4th and 19 fake punt thing? Everybody, without exception, asked me about that. And they're not BYU guys. They just know that I have ties to BYU. So all the Stanford folks that we've gotten to know. So, and then their next question was, but what's wrong with our offense? They're wondering what's wrong with Stanford's offense. So same things. Stanford lost 3 They lost 3 offensive linemen to the NFL last year, including Garnett, the best offensive lineman in the country. And they're like, why can't Christian McCaffrey just run like crazy? Well, because they're young up front. And for BYU, 3 guys, Kyle Johnson's a guy that a lot of people thought was an NFL guy. You lose him. Wilcox was a big physical guy that had experience. And what they're doing shorthanded, I think they're right on track.
I think it's pretty stinking good.
I think they're right on track.
I really do.
And I think the fact that they're 4-4 after November, we're going to feel very different about this season because right now it's kind of like right there, right?
Hey,
but
I'm with you. I think they should be 5-3 right now, and then we'd be jumping for joy because they'd be way ahead of schedule instead of right on schedule.
And then they'd have a shot at 10. They have a shot at 9, which is really good still. And I keep thinking back to preseason expectations. Your expectations change based on
when they play well, and you see that they run the ball as well as they do. And the line was coming along faster than we thought they would come along. So you change your expectations. The thing that scares me a little bit is Cincinnati's a little scary right now to me.
What's scary about Cincinnati?
Well, because all of us, so they've had a quarterback controversy. Tuberville decided he wasn't going to play Gunnar Kiel. And BYU saw Gunnar Kiel last time they played. Tall guy that runs this spread really well and throws it all over the place. 5th-year senior, and they go, nah, he got beat out in spring ball. So they've been kind of rotating 2 other guys and not playing Gunnar. So now this last game, Tommy says, we're going to start Gunnar. And Gunnar goes in and flings it all over the place.
He went crazy.
He flings it all over the place, right? And I don't know that East Carolina is very good this year, but now all the fans are going, what in the world? Why did we not play him early in the season? We knew that he was the guy. So they've got a quarterback controversy that's way more vocal than anything of the Tanner Taysom thing. And so they got that going on, and maybe that's a distraction. But I watched the tape on those guys, and Kiel looked good. He looked comfortable. They spread you out. They throw the ball around. So that game is not an easy football game. Now, I do think that BYU offensively can line up and run the football at him with a healthy Jamal, and Jamal should be healthy with a week off. So I think BYU comes out of there. But that's the game left on the schedule. Let's not go there and get into a West Virginia. Now, mind you, they're not near as good as West Virginia, but let's not get into that type of game because that's the type of game that Cincinnati could win back there. So that one's a little scary to me, guys. Cincinnati's a little scary.
Blaine Fowler with us in Studio B discussing BYU's first 8 games and now what to expect down the road. I want to bring up something you said all the way back on January 19th, Blaine. And this is a quote. If this BYU team goes 4-4 in the first 8, then this coaching staff has done a phenomenal job. So let's discuss the coaching staff a little bit.
So Mike Empey, with what he's done with that offensive line, that has been the biggest pleasant surprise to me because early in the season we knew there were going to be struggles, and then we saw them. So oh man, we do miss Kyle Johnson, we do miss Wilcox. Is this going to be a long season because we're not going to be able to protect him, we're not going to be able to run the football. And then we saw them get better each week. Now they've still had some struggles against really good front sevens, but I'm telling you, everybody's going to have a struggle against Boise State's front 7, and everybody struggles against Utah's front 7. And so against the really good teams, and they didn't struggle against West Virginia's front 7. Jamal was phenomenal. So with a healthy Jamal and with these guys up front, he just needs a little crack. And, can Squally be that good next year? Well, we always use the word elite. Jamal's an elite running back that looks like an NFL guy. Can Squally get there? I think he can be close. But this offensive line's going to be better next year. So the combination of him just needing a tiny little crack and how well this offensive line has progressed has probably been the biggest pleasant surprise for me this season.
So there you go. Shout out to Mike Empey.
Yeah, they've done great. They've done a great job. And I think Ty implementing a brand new offense, I see them getting better all the time. Defensively, they have been a bit of a surprise as well. They've been a little bit up and down, but I look at the youth at linebacker and the injuries they've had on the D-line, and I think they've been pretty productive against some pretty good offenses and kept themselves in the game. And the one thing they've done that we haven't seen for a long time, this team forces turnovers like crazy. So if I'm going to say the number one thing, I'm going to say the offensive line has been far superior to my expectations after we found out about who wasn't going to play. Because I had high expectations before that. And then the number 2 thing is I've been most pleased with the way they attack the football and create turnovers. That's been really, really impressive.
Yeah, that's been an incredible strength, especially in the secondary there. Do you expect any of the next 4 games to be decided by 3 points or less? Because that would tie an NCAA record.
Yeah, Cincinnati could be a close football game. Now, here's the thing. If it's a close football game, I'm worried. Because I think BYU ought to saddle Jamal up and just smack them in the mouth all game long and keep the football away from them. And if that's the case, I think BYU wins comfortably. But if they get in a shootout, that's the game that I think could be close. And then, you never want to predict an in-state game because anything can happen with Utah State, but they've had a lot of injuries as well.
But not really. It's Utah State.
Yeah, and so that game, but I just look at where BYU's come and the schedule that they've played and the type of teams they've played, and the only game that I look at and say, that could be a 3-point game again, is on the road at Cincinnati. I think they win comfortably the other football games.
9 wins or bust for BYU?
If they get to 8, I'll go back to what I said before the season.
Okay.
So they're allowed to lose one more. I don't think they will. I do think they get to 9. I think they get to 9.
I do too.
But if they lose one and get to 8, I'm going to say they did a good job. They met my expectations. If they get to 9, they exceeded my expectations a little bit. And I will think that it has been a very, very good season. If they'd have gotten 1 of Utah-Boise State, then I would have talked about, wow, is this a season for the ages? But I'm okay with 8, guys. 9, my expectation is 9 now, total, with a bowl.
I'm stressed thinking about Utah and Boise State.
Blaine, I wish upon you no more 10-5 football games ever in your life.
I wanted to punch myself in the face at that game by the middle of the fourth quarter.
That would hurt.
Well, it would take my mind off of the game.
Coming up, thanks, Blaine.
You bet.